Hi, my name is Corey Biazzo, and I'm a practicing American civil litigation attorney, and you are watching Executive Coup. In today's episode, we're going to discuss a new complaint filed by the U.S. Attorney General PamBondi's Chief of Staff, Chad Mizelle, against Chief Judge James Boasberg of the U.S. District Court for the District of D.C. in relation to the JGG versus Trump matter that we discussed in episodes 5 and 13. The 5-page letter by Consigliere, PamBondi's Chief of Staff, is written on Chief Judge Srinivasan of the U.S. District Court of Appeals for the District of D.C. The complaint alleges that on March 11th, 2025, Judge Boasberg, while attending a session of the Judicial Conference of the United States, quote, attempted to improperly influence Chief Justice Roberts and roughly 24 other federal judges by straying from the traditional topics to express his belief that the Trump administration would disregard rulings of federal courts and trigger a constitutional crisis. The complaint further states, quote, his remarks have been widely publicized without stating or quoting the actual comments that Judge Boasberg allegedly made at the conference to Chief Justice Roberts in the presence of other judges. The complaint states that Judge Boasberg expressed his belief that, quote, the Trump administration would, quote, disregard rulings of federal courts and trigger a constitutional crisis. I know, it's flabbergasting and comes out of left field that someone might express that they have concerns about the Trump administration possibly defying court orders, especially in light of a recent Washington Post study published on July 21st, 2025, titled, Trump Officials Accused of Defying 1 in 3 Judges Who Ruled Against Him, which states, quote, President Donald Trump and his appointees have been accused of flouting courts in a third of the more than 160 lawsuits against the administration in which a judge has issued a substantive ruling suggesting widespread noncompliance with America's legal system. Plaintiffs say Justice Department lawyers and the agencies they represent are snubbing rulings, providing false information, failing to turn over evidence, quietly working around court orders, and inventing pretexts to carry out actions that have been blocked. Here are a few examples of comments made by some of the federal judges from some of the 160 lawsuits. From U.S. District Judge Paula Zinnes of the U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland in the Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia matter that we discussed in episodes 3, 12, 22, and 27, quote, defendants have failed to respond in good faith and their refusal to do so can only be viewed as willful and intentional noncompliance. From U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson, quote, there is reason to believe that the defendants are thumbing their nose at both this court and the Court of Appeals. From U.S. District Judge Lauren Alicon, it appears that OMB, which is the Office of Management and Budget, sought to overcome a judicially imposed obstacle without actually ceasing the challenged conduct. The court can think of few things more disingenuous. The article provides that in 38 cases, Trump officials are not complying with court orders in 9 cases. They're giving false or misleading information. In 5 cases, they're withholding evidence. And in 5 cases, they're creating pretexts to go around court orders. Now against that widely publicized information by a media outlet that is well aware of President Trump's penchant for going after the press in legal actions and otherwise for publishing information that he dislikes and accuses of being false, let's turn to the substance of Consigliere Bondi's complaint. Try not to laugh. The complaint from Consigliere Bondi's office accuses Judge Boasberg of violating judicial rules of conduct for federal judges, specifically Canons 1, 2 subsection A, and 3 subsection A6 of the Code for United States Judges by purportedly making his alleged comments. Canon 1, titled, "A Judge Should Uphold the Integrity and Independence of the Judiciary," states, quote, "An independent and honorable judiciary is indispensable to justice in our society. A judge should maintain and enforce high standards of conduct and should personally observe those standards so that the integrity and independence of the judiciary may be preserved. The provisions of this court should be construed and applied to further that objective." The irony here is that by Judge Boasberg taking action in the JGG versus Trump case, as discussed in episode 13, to dig into the Trump administration's failure to comply with his orders to turn administration planes around that were heading to El Salvador to remove individuals deported pursuant to the Alien Enemies Act that was unlawfully invoked by the Trump administration, Judge Boasberg did exactly what Canon 1 requires. He insisted that his order issued by the independent judiciary would be enforced, and if not, that a deep dive would be taken into discovering why the government failed to comply with his orders to turn the planes around so the judge could consider imposing sanctions for contempt of court, which he found probable cause exists to hold the administration in criminal contempt of court. While Judge Boasberg may or may not have discussed the Trump administration's potential noncompliance with federal court orders with Chief Justice Roberts and other federal judges at the conference, Consigliere Bondi is likely misleading on the alleged comments and their intent. Given the unprecedented situation of a presidential administration disobeying federal court orders, it's not surprising that Judge Boasberg may have wanted to discuss the scenario with colleagues to seek input on how they would handle this type of unprecedented scenario to maintain the importance of the independent judiciary. As long as Judge Boasberg still applies the law impartially in the case, and any other judge who were part of the alleged conversation do the same, I don't see a problem. Let's turn to Canon 2A, which is titled, "A Judge Should Avoid Impropriety and the Appearance of Impropriety in All Activities." States, quote, "A judge should respect and comply with the law and should act at all times in manners that promote public confidence in the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary." As discussed in regards to Canon 1 of the Rules of Conduct for Federal Judges, I again don't see a problem here, at least without seeing the alleged specific comments purportedly made by Judge Boasberg at the conference. Let's turn to Canon 3, subsection A6, titled, "A judge should perform the duties of the office fairly, impartially, and diligently." States, quote, "A judge should not make public comment on the merits of a matter pending or impending in any court. A judge should require similar restraint by court personnel subject to the judge's direction and control. The prohibition on public comment on the merits does not extend to public statements made in the course of the judge's official duties, to explanations of court procedures, or to scholarly presentations made for purposes of legal education." As discussed in regards to Canons 1 and 2A, I again don't see the problem here, at least without seeing the alleged specific comments purportedly made by Judge Boasberg at the conference. Purported comments regarding potential noncompliance with the preliminary order don't address the merits of the case. Again, if any such comments were actually made, they were likely for Judge Boasberg to seek guidance from his colleagues on how to best address the unprecedented scenario of a presidential administration violating federal court orders. So it's easy to chalk this up as yet another shocking assault on the independent judiciary by a rogue federal executive branch which is controlled by the, quote, law and order party with convicted felon President Trump at the helm. This is not judicial misconduct. This is absurd. The Trump administration has, is, and will likely continue to violate federal court orders from the co-equal judicial branch of our federal government. Keep following Executive Coup for further updates on this matter and others related to the apparent executive coup attempt that is unfolding in the U.S. federal government at the direction of President Donald J. Trump. Thank you.